them to discharge? Because they're trustees. And they send you a statement on account and you be thinking it's a bill. Then you go pay it. Instead of charging them. This is what they've been getting away with. Now you understand the reversion of statement?
Yes.
All right. So they have access to limited or unlimited. Anyway, let's go. Now, the Federal Reserve System is based on the canon law. So you understand?
Still have a second question.
The Jesuit order. All right. Federal Reserve System is based on the canon law and the principles of sovereignty protected in the Constitution and Bill of Rights. In fact, the international bankers use a canon law trust as their model, adding stock and naming it a joint stock trust. The United States Congress had passed a law making it illegal for any legal person to duplicate a joint stock trust in 1873. Got to keep in mind the Act of Congress 1871. See, they completed their political platform. So you got to know what this is actually referencing. So the Federal Reserve Act was legislated post facto to 1870. Although post facto laws are strictly forbidden by Constitution, right? Hold on, let me see here. Now, this is the other point I want you to see. Prior to 1913, keep in mind when Raleigh set up the Old Canine Temple for the restoration of the state, and he crashed that in the United States. So prior to 1913, so before 1913, on up to 1913, most Americans own free or clear allodial title to property. You ask people what an allodial title is, most of them don't even know it, never even heard of it. And they think that the mortgage and the deed is the ownership of the land. No, allodial title is. This is what Raleigh was restoring. You see, so if you don't know this, you sit around talking about beliefs or how you feel and praying and making salat, your concepts are wrong. You know, so people are trying to keep this information from our people so they can keep them thinking that you're just supposed to go there and pray. And you're declared incompetent, and this European still gets mandated, and that's how this thing has been going on. And this is why we did the allodial trust and everything, just like Dee did, to show you an example. So when you take them mortgages, you convert them to your estate under clear allodial title, because you're the heir. And if you don't do it, they claim that you've abandoned your estate. This is where, if they carry it through, which they will often do, you have a future argument, and it can be reversed. This is basically what Rick did. That's what Rick did. Do you understand? So you understand this principle, and you see, but anyway, just read this paragraph and then we'll just talk. Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title to property, free and clear of any liens or mortgages. You see that? Until the Federal Reserve Act, 1913, hypothecated all property within the federal United States to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, in which the trustees, stockholders, that's the Congress and all of them, who set up a kingship oligarchy for themselves and have been pretending to be congressmen ever since May 10th of 1861. So the trustees held legal title. U.S. citizen, tenant, franchisee was registered as a beneficiary to the trust via his or her birth certificate in 1933, because Raleigh crashed that in the United States, and that's when Franklin Delano Roosevelt used the birth certificates, because Raleigh crashed that one. And there you go. That's what Trafficant was talking about. That's why they killed him a couple years ago. You know, pretending that his tractor turned over when he was putting it in the barn.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it's a hill on it, going in the barn door, right? Yeah, right. Anyway, so via his or her birth certificate in 1933 in the federal United States hypothecated all the present and future properties, assets, and labor of their subjects. 14th Amendment, U.S. citizen to the Federal Reserve. And this is why they have the so-called black leaders going around on the civil rights telling our people that they're U.S. citizens and they think they're getting a benefit and they're really agreeing to be stock. You understand? That's the idiom sonus, transmitting utility, man of straw, etc. And so, understanding the real politics, declare your estate. And without being an heir or your nationality, you can't use the Constitution or treaty. Because that's an heir instrument. And this is what people need to understand. Constitutions and treaties are to nation states what family wills are to the limited unit family. And without the nationality, you have no right of claim of the estate. This is why the European created the nom de guerre, and this is why Frederick Johann Blumenbach and Carlos Linnaeus set up the phenotype systems for the United States Census Bureau, and then they paid off the so-called Negro preachers to get our people to be people of color, thinking it made them Afrocentric, and it actually made them non-descendable. And 14th Amendment U.S. citizens, they converted the debt to you again. And that's how it works. So if you understand how it works, you understand, if you understand that basis, you wouldn't even need us to give you an example, you would know what to say. But if you cross your conversation into the feudal realm, you lose your argument. So the issue is your concepts of knowing the difference between the U.S. democracy order that was set up in 1861, distinguished from the United States Republic that was set up by the Moors and the deists, called Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, etc., all who had Korans, who were in operation under the Moroccan Empire, and with the ordinance of 1787 determining to protect the heirship or the Aboriginal people's interests. That's why you have the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1786, 1787, Ordinance of 1787, the ratification of the Constitution for the United States, 1788, solidified 1789. Now, as a synopsis, so you'll understand the politics even behind this. By Abraham Lincoln being a member of the Bar Association, he could not run for office for the organic United States. So they ran him for office on the United States Service Corporation in France that Benjamin Franklin set up in 1754. So that gave him power over the contracts, the service contracts to the organic United States. When Lincoln recognized that they were using him to undermine the Republic, Lincoln bankrupted that United States Service Corporation in France that put a target on his back. Then he did the Dungy case, this is prior to that. He had done the Dungy case, which I read when we first came in here. That put a target on his back. That's the reason Lincoln was assassinated. Are we clear? And then the plot of 1861, the Congress adjourned C&D was really a coup d'etat. And the plot was to convert the United States Service Corporation debt that Lincoln bankrupted onto the backs of the descendants of the Moors who was protected by treaty and constitution. That's why the brand system is necessary to take you out of heirship. Do you understand? That's why the black Negro thing is promoted. Because only Moors can be the holders in due course, through heirship alone. This is why Europeans, with the sovereignty groups who perfect the different processes that they build because they knew this real history, and then when they perfect the processes, the magistrates tell them you can't use that Constitution and treaty as a defense. You're not a party to it. As soon as they agreed to be white people under the Knights of Columbus Ku Klux Klan oath, 1854 to 1863, under the split of the Whittemore Party, setting up the Republican Party, they gave up their birthright too. You need to understand the politics. So they know the history, and they still try to steal the estate. You understand? And so now we're in a quandary. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And the heirs still half asleep. Meanwhile, nations are dumping them UST bonds because they see these heirs are waking up because they're worthless paper.
Yes, yes.
And most of the nation states have over 55% of their treasury reserved in UST bonds. And the Manchurians said to them, no more shells. So now let's go to the Pope's letter because I'm showing you these component parts so you can understand the William Dungy case and why you proclaim your nationality. It's an airship issue. Think airship. You don't have to do what we do. You need to understand the concept. Do you understand? And as you work your brains, many of you will do better than this. But I'm just giving you some reference points so that you can understand where your battle really is. So you don't start arguing no colors and stuff like that. It's an estate issue. Always was. That's the adjustments I made with the reversion. I want to make sure I put that on your flash drive. All right, so let's go and hold on. Now, Pope's letter to Obama. Now, we're going to read this. Now, this is redundant, but again, necessary, concept-wise. Because if you really pay attention, many of the questions that you ask are really already answered. You just got to pay attention to details. This is a synopsis of the history. The original and de jure Constitution and government for the United States of America, small u, at North America, having a Republican form of government, Article 4, Section 4, all right? Set forth and established at Article 4, Section 4, stands as the supreme law of the land. The organic Constitution was altered by acts of misprision and was secretly overthrown and converted into a foreign, privately owned and deemed for-profit corporation in the year 1871. See the Act of Congress, 1871. That said misprision derived in foreign feudal law entity born of treason was styled as the United States Corporation Company, which is now commonly referred to as the U.S. democracy. The foreign and privately owned entity deceptively created by acts of sedition and all its many states of entities or its other licensed and associated corporate franchisees were and are ultimately and factually owned by the Vatican. Being members of the Roman Curia, this politically and socially subdued truth and fact is actually the veiled foundation and source of the functioning jurisdictional powers that gave and still gives the Pope of Rome or the Vatican bishopric the colorably valid and affirmable authority over the entity U.S. democracy, United States Corporation, and also jurisdiction over those subordinate associated entities as expressed and executed via this impacting letter. Now, you all have this, so I'm not going to go through all this. We're going to just go to the Pope's letter so you can understand the concept. So there's Pope Francis speaking to his employee of the United States Corporation Service Corporation. Now, so Pope Francis sends Obama a powerful letter via attorney, and of course you all know the other letter, early one. But this is important because the Pope tells you the history, and he also shows you the shells. So write down the shells so that you can understand what Trafficon is talking about, what Louis McFadden was talking about, what we're talking about, and what Noble Drew Ali was countering. So now you can see modus operandi.
So the shells are who? The American
The shell, most people don't know that the United States has shell corporations that were built since the first one crashed in 1861. See, Lincoln crashed the first shell. They reestablished it. And then Drew Ali crashed that one. Then they reestablished it. Drew Ali crashed the next one. See, so the one that Lincoln crashed, 1860. One Drew Ali crashed, 1913. Then Drew Ali crashed the other one, but they assassinated him, but it still crashed, 1933. That's the one that Franklin Delano Roosevelt did. And then this last one crashed again, and then the Manchurians told them, you ain't doing no more shells. That's what's going on right now between China, Russia, and the United States Corporation Company operatives who've been continuously pretending to be government and waging war with counterfeit paper, pretending to be government, and now the world is turning on them. That's the politics. Meanwhile, our people who thought there was Negro, black, and color is at the center of this thing and don't know it because the people who should have told them this stuff decades ago, they're marching around praying and keeping hope alive and stuff, and they're the heirs to the world's largest estate, and these people trying to kill them off. And they need to know that. Go ahead, good brother.
Quick question.
Get a mic.
That's
okay.
No, but when you doing, because we have people listening.
Big up for them. Yeah.
Right.
Just point of clarity, can you give an example, explain clearly, for example, how did Lincoln crash the shell?
All right, this is what occurred. So you got to know about the shell. So write this down. 1754, Benjamin Franklin, who was later to be one of the ministers plenipotentiary with the construction of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the Moroccan Empire and the United States. And you got to understand the United States is an agreement of Europeans operating at Northwest Amexem or North America. And this is why it's important to understand the fall of the Red House, which is the Alhambra in 1492. And so that is the conversion point with the Romanus Pontifex and into Terra Divina, 1492, 1493. And so the Moorish Empire was falling, and so the treaty would be planned or upcoming. So negotiations have been going on for like 30 to 40 years. And step by step, even though skirmishes was taking place, Benjamin Franklin set up the United States Service Corporation in France, 1754, to prepare for the service contracts that was to be dealing with government operations at Morocco under the Queen of England. Do you understand? Lincoln, being a member of the Bar Association by fatwa or Moorish law, could not hold the office of the organic president. So to control the contracts, they ran him for president on the platform of the United States Service Corporation in France. When he recognized they were using him to undermine the Republic, he deliberately bankrupted that platform, which put a target on his back. And of course, you already know these things were going on anyway, where they were trying to claim the land of the Moors. And before he was even in that office, 5 years before, that's the Dungy case that I read to you earlier. It's not the only case, but that's one of the primal cases, so you can see his counter moves to the cabal operations. This is why you see them doing a satire of dressing him in Moorish garb and calling him Africanus I. Are we clear? Because it's also known he had Moorish blood too, so they were kind of pissed anyway, because they were, the Spanish Inquisition is the Inquisition against the Moors and Yahudi. Yahudi is the proper name, what you call Jew. Yeah. But keep this in mind. You've got to keep in your mind the United States Service Corporation in France, distinguished from the United States Republic at Morocco, North America, that manifests as the union between the deists who were leaving the Christian order. That's Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, etc. Madison and all of them, they were deists. Are we clear? That's why all of them had Korans. It's the treaty. And so this is again why when you see Obama, when he went to Hikupta and he spoke before the delegates, he told you that the American Constitution comes from Muslim law. He's telling you the real history. And this is why Michelle went to the Alhambra. That's why she's wearing a red dress. And they're showing you the real American flag. Then he sold a picture of Drew Ali to show you your history. So, because he knows our people, they're confused because people have been playing with them for so many generations on both sides. So he's the operative of the corporate entity, so he's showing you. And so now, in this letter, as we read, you're going to see the Pope tell you what Obama's position is and tell you the shells. But you must be clear between the United States Corporation Service Company, which is really in operation. This is what Traficon is talking about. See, so people who don't know the history, when they see the United States, they think it's a country. Scholars know it isn't. Masons know it isn't. Skull and Bones know it isn't. Kaiklos, Ku Klux Klanners know it isn't. The Illuminati know it isn't. The only ones that don't know it isn't is the heirs. And they're incompetent. And then people keep playing with them with a bunch of processes to get a hold of the estate that's already theirs, thinking they can buy it. It can't be sold. It's unalienable. It can't be transferred to another. And then you got Europeans who knew the real history that set up all these kind of processes to try to claim the estate, and they can't because they're not the heirs. And those who abridged the treaty, they have no benefit or protection under international law anymore. This is the confusion that's going on. For you who understand what's really going on in the history, this is why when Facebook went IPO a few years ago, that Zuckerberg's partner went to Switzerland and nationalized. He didn't file no UCC with no financial statement or try to authenticate no birth certificate. He nationalized. Then the IRS gave him most of his estate back because he would have lost most of it. He did it, what, 3 days before Facebook went IPO. But they're not going to tell our people this because meanwhile, while these transitions are being made, a lot of people can rape these people with these processes thinking that they can buy the estate. It's an heirship. It can't be sold. Our people need to understand the distinction between privileges and rights.
That's right.
And particularly birthrights or unalienable rights. They can't be sold. There's no way for you to buy them or sell them. It's a fraud if anybody does it. But if you don't understand this, you can fall for it because people can think of very clever ways that make you think that you're going to get your hand into this bottomless pit account. Ain't nobody touching that global world trust. So the Pope is telling you, because he knows this stuff, but meanwhile they're starting to get bumped off. Do you understand? So they can't keep, in spite of all the BS going on, this stuff is collapsing. They got to fix this thing. Not that they want to, but it's over. Meanwhile, the heirs, which is y'all, and these people walking up down the street thinking they're human beings with crayons, are behind history. They're behind, they don't even know their bloodline. They're going to tell you about Jesus, God, Allah, what's on the dark side of the moon, the Bureau, when the 13 planets come through, and don't even know their bloodline. And it's really unfortunate because people who knew this information and who were put in position to take this information to the four corners of the earth, to all nations, have abrogated their responsibility and been blocking people who've been doing it, or calling them renegades, they ain't the real Moors and all this kind of stuff, when they were supposed to do this stuff decades ago before anybody in this room was born. And here our people are suffering, dying on the street, and the Europeans still have mandate over your estate because we keep on falling for these processes that they keep on trying to, first with site drafts, HMOs, then UCCs, then financial statements, now birth certificate. And it's not that it doesn't seem logical on the principle, because it's attached to a truth. But if you understand that you can't, how are you going to authenticate a fraud unless you're just letting the creator of that fraud off the hook? Not just that, you can't convert somebody who's not an heir into the holder in due course because it's an heirship issue. And the heirship is made on the Moroccan Empire that was divided amongst the Christian nations with the Treaty of Berlin Conference, 1884-1885, Berlin, Germany. Dividing of the Moorish Empire between the Christian nations, who were really Constantinians pretending to be Christians.
Yes.
And this is your politics. That is the politics. So let's read the Pope's letter, and it'll give you more insight. Pay attention to the different spellings of the United States. He's showing you the shell corporations.
Okay.
And then we'll talk a little bit more, right? So let's go through this and then analyze this. And so the first sentence, he deals with most of the people who are attacking you under the guise of government. So you can understand they're not really government, but they're really attacking you. You understand? And remember what he said to the Moors. He says, if you don't carry out my law, you're going to be sorry. Don't be caught with your shoes unlaced. Because he told you what the mission is, to help them bring the people back into the constitutional fold. And these people been telling these people that you all need them teach civics. People who should have been telling you this stuff. Issued to all members of the domestic police forces. So when you see these police doing the stuff that they're doing, they're really commercial mercenaries against the people, trying to kill them off or trying to find excuses to start to destabilize them. They're not law officers. They are Roman soldiers. Issued to all members of the domestic police forces, U.S. Marshal Service, the Provost Marshal, members of the American Bar Association, and the American Armed Services. These organic American states of the Union known as, pay attention to the spelling, United States of America, major, write that down, exercising plenary civil power upon the land. He just separated the United States Corporation from the land. So don't be thinking that the United States is a country. All right? Get it clear. And when you make lawful arguments, keep this clear in your head, because if you step across, you just killed your argument. And they're going to take advantage of you while not explaining it to you. So known as the United States of America major, exercising plenary power, civil power upon the land, hereby appoint General Carter F. Ham to lead and command the Grand Army of the Republic, and its successors, that's talking about all the shell corporations and entities representing that authority or under the jurisdiction, and its successors under the guidance of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and with their full support, should it become necessary to suppress commercial mercenary forces. All of these people who have been operating you on a day-to-day basis on the policemen, etc., are commercial mercenaries. They're not law officers, they're commercial mercenaries. Should it become necessary to suppress commercial mercenary forces operating under the guise of being federal government agencies, including but not limited to the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, the Internal Revenue Service, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, etc. General Ham shall assume immediate command and control of all armed forces and services owed to the United States of America major stationed in North America, and shall join them under his command as the Grand Army of the Republic. All forces of air, land, and sea are to be employed. Any cost or loss suffered as a result of deployment of the Grand Army of the Republic shall be charged as stipulated prior. All efforts shall be made by the Grand Army of the Republic to spare life and property while undertaking any action whatsoever within the states of the Union without exception. The Grand Army of the Republic is uniquely enabled by these orders, quote unquote, to operate on the land of the 50 organic states for the purpose of securing the lives and property of the American states and American state citizens. The Grand Army of the Republic is not a foreign army and is composed primarily of American state citizens. If required to take field position, the local commanders shall make every effort to communicate the basis of their authority and the reason for their presence on American state soil, to ensure prompt cessation of hostilities and a widespread understanding of the usurpations and acts of fraud which have led to any conflict. All parties must be brought to understand the nature of the federal government, the limitations of its authority, and their own obligation to act in favor of the organic states of the Union. The Grand Army of the Republic shall continue to operate under General Order 100, known as the Lieber Code, extend from the pen of the last Republic President Abraham Lincoln. So that was the last legal operations of government. Are we clear? Under the Lincoln administration. Be clear. Anyone after that is an imposter. So when you be thinking that their government, they have authority, they are treasonous imposters. Are we clear? Thus, do what? Quo warranto. They have no delegation of authority whatsoever, nor any entity established by them thereafter. Are we clear? And this is where the Bible says Satan has no power except what you give him. Meaning that they have no authority except if you relinquish your claim on the state. Do you understand? Because that's what they're operating on. So, if required to take field position, the local commander shall make every effort to communicate the basis of their authority and the reasons for their presence on American state soil. See how it's separated from the land? He keeps making that distinction. You got to get that into your head. The political operations have nothing really to do with the land. You're under occupation. All right. To ensure prompt cessation of hostilities and a widespread understanding of the usurpations and acts of fraud which have led to any conflict. All parties must be brought to understand the nature of the federal government, the limitations of its authority, and their own obligation to act in favor of the organic states of the Union. Understand what's being said here. The Grand Army of the Republic shall continue to operate under General Order 100, known as the Lieber Code, extend from the pen of the last Republic President, Abraham Lincoln. He's giving you the history and the Masonic secrets, open, clear, straightforward, needs no interpretation. No orders, executive or otherwise, issued by Barack H. Obama pretending authority on the land of the American states while operating as quote-unquote President of the United States, uppercase, corporation, nor as President of the United States of America, minor. He just named 2 shells already. You gotta understand what he's talking about. Are owed any performance by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Ham, or any ordinary, all plainly stated grants of contractual authority evident in the Constitution for the United States of America. See that one? That's the organic. That's the legitimate one, distinguished from the others. That's the first one that Lincoln crushed. All right. The other one's duly crushed. All right. Remain in place, subject to good faith performance of the accompanying obligations and treaties. So you see the Constitution and treaties looked at it as one document. And half these people don't know the treaty is there for their protection. It's an airship issue. Are we clear? Mr. Obama is the quote-unquote president of a governmental services corporation. He's talking about that corporation that Lincoln bankrupted that they've been continuously building these shells for. Are we clear? Mr. Obama is the president of a governmental services corporation under contract to provide stipulated services to the organic states and is on their payroll. That's that United States corporation company that Lincoln bankrupted in 1860 that got him killed. Now you understand the Dungy case 5 years even before? Same issues continuing, and these people don't know the issue. That's why I brought the Dungy case up. Because we mentioned it, but we know that you didn't have the documents, so I'm giving you the documents so you can see for yourself. All right? So, pardon me.
The other ones aren't fast.
Mr. Obama is president of a governmental service corporation under contract to provide stipulated services to the organic states and is on their payroll. He otherwise acts as a foreign dignitary. So that office is a foreign dignitary office because it's not the legitimate government. Are we clear? So you see, Obama was doing his job trying to tell you the real history so that you could claim the estate. Do you see? So he acts as a foreign dignitary representing the United States of America, minor, another show. In neither capacities is he allowed any granted authority to impose upon the American state citizens, endanger American state property, or command mercenary forces on American state soil. However veiled as federal civilian service agencies, we require the Joint Chiefs of Staff and General Hand to commence measures to disarm federal civilian agency personnel and to seize control of the vast stockpiles of arms, which have been improperly amassed by the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and other agencies employed by the United States. The only federal agency allowed free egress on the land of the American states is the U.S. Marshal Service, and then only when their personnel are engaged in their duty to protect the U.S. mail and sworn to act as constitutional officers. Write that down, constitutional officers. This is where your quo-warrantos come in, your delegation of authority order claims come in, your counterclaims, your challenges of jurisdiction, your aberrants of jurisdiction, as well as your what? What did we read earlier relative to those barristers under the reconveyance? That's what that, see the nature of that letter now relative to your statement? All right. All other federal agency personnel are limited to unarmed service until further notice. We direct the Joint Chiefs of Staff to communicate these first 2 general civil orders directly to Mr. Obama, the members of the U.S. Congress, the administrators. They're administrators, are we clear? The administrators of all federal agencies, the members of the Supreme Court, and those acting as governors, to compel their rapid understanding and cooperation. Any expense or damage incurred by these organic states or any American state citizen as a result of actions undertaken by any federal agency personnel acting as armed mercenaries on American state soil will be understood as a result of violent crimes committed against the peaceful inhabitants of the land, and will incur immediate judgment liquidating the assets of the International Monetary Fund, which is really secret one of those United States shells, and the Federal Reserve, lowercase and uppercase, in payment of the stipulated reparations. Such crimes shall also be considered contract default, increasing the public debt subject to bounty. Any and all corporate officers of the United States, write that one down, all upper cases, or any successor organizations inheriting federal service contracts who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states or American state citizens shall be subject to arrest and prosecution for commercial and violent crimes. All foreign officials operating as elected or appointed officers of the United States of America, minor, who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states or American state citizens shall be subject to arrest, confiscation of their assets, and deportation to Puerto Rico, Guam, or such other states as may be willing to receive them. Such foreign officials include members of the American and British Bar Associations who were licensed to act as privateers against the interest of the American states and the American state citizens from 1845 to 2013. In flagrant breach of trust, all such licenses are now extinguished. Members of the bar associations are required to cease and desist assaults against the American states and American state citizens, and shall be subject to arrest, confiscation, and deportation otherwise. Insomuch as corporate officers operating the United States of America Incorporated and the United States, uppercase, have contrived under conditions of fraud and semantic deceit to revenue the estates of the American states and living American state citizens to the foreign jurisdiction of the United States of America, minor. This is what they've been doing with the foreclosures. They are found guilty of capital crimes, including acts of fraud and treason committed between 1933 and 1945, and are condemned posthumously. Insomuch as elected officials operating in the United States of America, minor, notice how he's emphasizing over and over again, have similarly committed war crimes against the American states and their peaceful inhabitants during the same period, they stand condemned posthumously. No enforcement upon any American state or American state citizen is owed as a result of any Congress, any act of any Congress operating as the sovereign government of the United States of America, minor, nor as the board of directors or board of trustees of any incorporated entity whatsoever. All those estates, pay attention to this paragraph. This goes back to people trying to sell birthrights under any auspices of claims or processes. This is the Pope who owns all the members of the Roman Curia, telling you directly, all those estates, small case, and estates, uppercase, erroneously believed to represent the American states and American state citizens, and which were conveyed by fraud and legal deceit to the United States of America, minor, and more recently to the city-state of the United Nations, are revenued without exception to the geographically defined American states and the American state citizens, where they shall remain in perpetuity as assets belonging to the rightful and lawful beneficiaries. Rahm Emanuel told you who the real aboriginals are, the real Americans. Now, all legal fiction entities, however structured, uppercase, lowercase, idem solum, transmitting utility, straw man, man or straw, PPP, DDD, whatever, P1Me, all is reverted. So all legal fiction entities, however structured, and named after the American states and American state citizens are returned to them and their control. Read this with me, y'all. Free and clear of any debt, promise, encumbrance, or obligation alleged against them as a result of false claims made in their behalf, quote unquote, by officers of the United States of America Incorporated and the United States uppercase Incorporated, or any foreign officials operating the United States of America minor or the United States city-state, falsely claiming to quote-unquote represent them or have jurisdiction over them. We note that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were summarily claimed as chattels back in U.S. government debt in wake of the Civil War. Despite every act of abolition and declaration of prohibition against both peonage and slavery, it has been the policy of the U.S. government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state among the nations of the world. Instead of freeing African Americans, the sum total of the Civil War was to vastly expand public sector ownership of slaves, giving rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and American state citizens that we are dealing with today. It is uniquely fitting that the Grand Army of the Republic is recalled to settle this circumstance in favor of the people. Attachments, civil orders, Anna Maria Wilhelmina, Hannah Sophia Ritzinger von Ritzenstein von Netlo Verbeck, private attorney in service to His Holiness Pope Francis. Documents related. The United States isn't a country, it's a corporation. The hidden crown, Vatican Crown Empire. So the Pope's telling you. So you don't have to figure it out. See, so all those are the shell corporations since that corporation that Lincoln bankrupted in 1860, and it ties the past to the present. And now you understand the Dungy case that took place 5 years before Lincoln was president. You understand the branch system, the issue of a state, the conversion of your state to the private corporate United States. That's been the bond system since the Civil War. So who's the heirs? They're Moors. What happens if you claim to be anybody else? You lose your estate. That's simple, uncomplicated. And since it's so difficult to get this information to our people, because we have people on both sides blocking this information, misrepresenting it, trying to sell people packages, robbing them while they're waking up when there is no debt. So the Pope, who owns the corporate entities, is telling you there is no encumbrance. So how somebody going to sell something that's an estate? That's your birthright. You just need to be confident and claim your estate. Are we clear? Dr. Nayo.
Islam. My question is, since the Pope has issued this letter to...
And this ain't the only one either.
Okay.
Also read the other one too.
Well, this is the most recent one.
But this is thorough.
Right.
Meaning that this is because they abridged. Remember 2013 when we did the motu proprio?
I remember.
That was the first one they abridged. That's when Napolitano and all them resigned and all that stuff. And this is also when the Pope came here. People who don't understand what's really going on. The Pope came out of the room crying. Yeah, it has to do with this. Meanwhile, the people who are the heirs are supposed to be informed. This is why when Obama, they came back and they signed the rights of indigenous people for our people to declare their nationality, said it, Part 1, Article 5, etc. Rahm Emanuel even told the people, and it's like, and they're still playing black.
Yeah,
meanwhile, the world's economies are collapsing.
Here's my question.
Go ahead.
My question is, since this has been issued, and since we know this to be true, what is being done to enact to make the changes? Because they're about to bring in a new president.
This is what's happening.
Who is even more.
This is what happened.
Yeah, because this is all well and good.
Look, think about what you're saying. He's the president of a private corporate
and I realize that,
not of the organic state.
And I get it.
Yeah.
But what's going to change? Is it us?
Yes,
Is us waking up?
That's what has to change. What we have to do, we have to be baptized. We have to be purged of the misconceptions. We have to be born again with a new mind. Our mind is corrupted. We're still thinking that they're government. You're the heirs. The sovereignty is the people themselves. It's in their birthright. That is the birthright. That is the unalienable rights that have been sold since the Civil War, unlawfully, under fraud. And you've been trained for generations. Durali came to purge you of that mentality. So the Pope himself is telling you, and he's the head of the Roman Curia itself. He's backing Durali 150%. But the people, by not knowing their history, keep thinking they got to dance through these hoops. Capture this, capture that. They got to be themselves. And, you know, and people in between, while they're slow waking up, keep raping them of the little resources that they have on a platform that you can't win on. When the Pope said there is no encumbrance, it's already returned to you. So you got to step up. In other words, this is the redundancy. And you already know we've been going, because it's really a purging. Even those of us who know, we still are in the process of purge. Because our language is corrupted because we've been trained in semantic deceit. You know, and so one must know of the United States corporate entity in France and understand the shell corporations that were continually constructed. So the Pope even puts it in writing. But most people, if they hear the United States, in their mind, the country, positive partisan, the government, it ain't your government. You know, it's a private corporation that's been converting your estate to their own private debt, and you've been accepting it out of ignorance. And actually paying for your own enslavement and in debt, and then they come in and taking your houses. Your estate that's been hypothecated. And so this is back to people. To understand this, to understand their argument. Once you understand the history, this is the whole point. If you take someone that knows absolutely nothing and give them a synopsis of the real history, the protocols are obvious. Meaning, it'll take time for them to think it out, but the protocols are absolutely obvious. Now, people who've had this information, there's absolutely no excuse for their concept to continue to be wrong. However, they know that the people are creatures of habit and they haven't purged. Meanwhile, people are setting upon them. We sell you this package, see, because we're going to buy your sovereignty and you want to get a hold of this bottomless pit account and everything through the QC number. All sounds good. And technically, it should work. But you're not in there. And they ain't releasing crack. They're still trying to convert your estate. This is what the corruption that the Pope was telling you that's going on. This is why the Manchurians are dumping the bonds. In other words, they did the beast there in treason. So they're dumping the bonds, so all the artificial instruments that they've created to keep access to the global world trust are becoming useless to them. It's sort of like they can continue to do what they call quantitative easing, which means creating instruments, counterfeit instruments to keep stealing, and then using them to wage wars to keep the people destabilized.
So what will compel
and going to and fro to earth devouring nations? Go ahead.
What will compel the Pope to do that right now in this particular time and space?
Starting.
And what will be the end process of this?
No, all right. Let's look like this. A banker, as an example, amongst many others, was having dinner with his wife in New York. And he was so happy about the dinner that he went up on the platform and jumped off and squashed himself on the street. Then another one did it in London the next day, and then a few more did it. And then some hung themselves from tall garages without chairs. And then others shot themselves in the head with nail guns at short distance, and they were all suicides. And after a while, then somebody started lighting candles and put them under people's keisters, and it inspires them to move. So that starts it. Now, meanwhile, the Manchurians set out 6.5 million amongst 20 million perfected assassins on the Earth planet to start countering European colonial operations. They're losing people on both sides. That's going on right now. All right? So The promise was, yes, you're still doing what you're doing. Take one, we take 10. See who lasts. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Then the head of Comex in London, with their connection in New York, that deals with the Comex, that's crashing the real price of gold and silver. One just so happy with all his wealth that he decides to just fall over Friday, and then the one on London Monday he falls over. So that breaks that connection. Then Germany, their number one ally, starts making a lot of contracts with the Russians when they were actually told not to. Because they sent their representatives over to New York to check their gold, and they told them to take a hike. Then a month later, the buildings fell, and they claimed that Muslims with box cutters did it. And everybody knows it's a lie, except the people here. And so the rest of the world saying, all right, everybody put on turtleneck sweaters. So everybody put on turtleneck sweaters, and the vampires start losing weight. And so they've been working on the T-bonds since the Civil War. That's been the backbones. And so the Manchurians and the Russians been dumping them T-bonds. So they've been rushing day and night, getting bags on their eyes without handles, printing these instruments. They call them quantitative easing, right? Greasing the spoon, whatever, and for nothing. Then they're buying back their own instruments with these instruments, and then other nations who were afraid to are dumping their T-bonds. And so now they got all these instruments that are worthless papers, and the rest of the nations are in a situation like this. They don't want to cause a panic and bank runs. You understand? So what they're trying to do is dump them without looking like they're dumping them, and see who gets lost in the musical chairs thing. This is what's going on amongst the nations of the earth right now. So meanwhile, the heirs of the state still think they're black, and they should have been woke up a long time ago, and we're trying to wake them up. Now Rome is doing GMOs with Monsanto, which is military complex. They're trying to put nanoviruses in their children. House Joint Resolution 2748, I think all their bank accounts are already claimed. Their savings fund, their 401ks are now 409ks. This is for real.
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody. And
not
so,
heirs.
Yeah.
If you have an account
It's there.
that's associated to a Federal Reserve anything,
It's
that's
there.
who it belongs to.
It's all unsecured loans.
It belongs to the Federal
And if you
Reserve.
try to take anything out, they will restrict you, right? And so what they're doing is that they're converting, and then all of the corporate cities operatives are going after anybody with a house or mortgage. Whether you think you paid up or not doesn't matter, because it's already really foreclosed, and they're trying to accelerate foreclosures to convert your estate to pay off their debts, which still can't be done. And they already know they're going to lose, but they're trying to take down a third of you with them. This is what's really going on. And so the Manchurians, and with the help of the Russians, India, now they have what's called the Mint nations. That's the real American states in the South that are converging and joining on to the BRICS nations, and they're negotiating in the background because everybody's going to be hurt, so there's no one that's going to come out of this unscathed. However, you know how it says if your right arm offend you, cut it off? Nobody want to use their arm, but if they want to live, they want to cut the right arm off. This is where everybody's abandoning the heartland. And the heartland is the United States Corporation Company that has been pretending to be a country since 1861 and has the whole world fooled and has been getting away with counterfeit and leaning it against the Moorish estate under the subtitle African Americans, while miseducating you at the same time and paying off your preachers, etc., to keep you passive while they rape you. And so now the Manchurians have stepped in and told them, no more shells. And now the Pope is telling you. And so then Obama is telling you the history. He showed you the real American flag. He tells you the American Constitution comes from Muslim law. And here we go again, being redundant, trying to wake you up. But this is the deal. Many of you have already been waking, but even a lot of people who are awake don't know this real history, which is why we're telling this history. And why we're telling you redundantly, because once you understand the history, you understand the politics. You understand everything that is moved on. Then you also understand why anyone in power must be a Mason. They must know the real history. That's why they all wear Moorish fez, though they pin the tassel down. Whether they're European clanners, Shriners, Eastern Star, Daughters of the American Revolution, and then in public, they act like they don't know who the Moors are. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And if you don't, let me do a little bit more to show you as an example. And this is the one who set up COINTELPRO operations.
I got a question, though, meantime.
So when you think that people don't know this, you know, you're sorely mistaken.
You got a question. And
it's also when you think that that even Europeans don't know this, because our people have this idea that Europeans don't know what this is all about and all this kind of stuff, and it's just really just not true. You're the one's been out to lunch.
Well,
you know what I mean?
He's had a question for a minute.
Go ahead.
My question to you is, you should submit a discovery document before you do the fiduciary, or is that the way?
In other words, like when you look at the reversionary statement, and Paul was going over reversionary for years when he was doing the high frequency radio, and you know, we used to go out to Paul's house and we talk and do strategies. And he shared a reversionary statement with me, and I just added to the estate issue that I was talking about in my lesson book, the unpublished part. And so what I did, I took the statement that he gave me and I enhanced it because I understood their history. But I also understood the Europeans that did it were trying to still claim the estate, but it was a good statement for people who understand the history. But I understood the missing components because I went behind the writing and went into the spirit of the writer. So I already knew what he's leaving out. So I added that to it, and which is why I want to share it back with him, because he gave it to me, because I already know that he's going to do more with it already, because he's been active in the background and traveling the country and doing a lot of stuff. Some of you have seen him here before, some of you heard him on radio, etc. But at the same time, he's been in the background doing a lot of work. And so I'm glad that he came tonight, because you know, we talked earlier. And I want to give that back to him because I already know he's going to look into it on another angle and deal with other stuff that he's already doing. But one of the things that I wanted to make you understand is that everybody already knew this. Now see this picture? See this one right here? This picture is the president of I think this one of Ohio, or maybe the one that they removed from Grand Lodge in Washington, D.C. We used to take people on tour to the Masonic Lodge, George Washington's Masonic Lodge, and the president of Mexico. I think this is his picture. But they moved it after we started coming there. People was coming from all around the world, but I think he's Hawaii though. I think this one is Hawaii. But the president of Mexico, also 1854, 1857. And see, so a lot of people here don't know the history. You know, just like Mataoka, who they call Pocahontas. When you go into the records of the Senate, when they were hanging her oil painting in the Senate Hall, you know, it's documented she's Muslim. But people have them thinking that these people are Indians. They were Muslim, they're Moors. You know, and she was an empress. You know, and even when they set up the Jamestown thing, when Ralph married her and they murdered her off Gravesend, England, that's when they set up the Jamestown and named the James River after Prince James, King James, for conversion of the Septuaginta into the Bible for deceiving people. So the James River is named after him for doing that work for the popes. And they've been having these people all scooped up ever since. They don't even know their own estate here. So these are some of the pictures of the people here for you to see. And then here's J. Edgar Hoover, set up a COINTELPRO operations. See his fest, Moorish fest. And there's Elijah Muhammad with his fest. Of course, there's no Drali. And these are the different, there's Harry Truman, President Ford.
John Wayne.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And John Wayne, you know. And our people be thinking nobody knows that these people are Moors, because they all be playing dumb. Now you understand the great Masonic secret? It's you. You're the heirs of the world's largest estate. And logically, people who've been benefiting don't want you to know. Why? Because the gravy train is over. You get the point?
Taj.
So I just want to show you some things so that you don't think that, you know, that nobody knows or they don't understand. Go ahead, Keisha.
I
Good.
wanted to ask.
Get in the mic.
I wanted to ask.
It's off.
Blue button.
Good. Push the button up.
I wanted to ask a question about your book, The Story of Rebecca. It said that they killed Matauka on the boat on their way to England, but then the story of Rebecca came.
No, they named her Rebecca. They named Matauka Rebecca because actually they're telling the theft of the birthright issue, and so they compare her with Rebecca in the Septuaginta in the Bible, where Isaac, Jacob, and Esau, and the theft of the birthright for a bowl of red pottage. That's a Kabbalistic story of the theft of your birthright. That's prophecy. Now, so they renamed Matauka Rebecca. And so in the book, I show the correlations so that people can see it. But understand that prophecy is really what you call a progressive chart. So prophecy is really a progressive chart where they take a chart and they take the math of the chart and take a person, they can turn it backwards or they can turn it forward. And they do a progressive on it. And so Matauka is representative of Rebecca in the Bible and the theft of the birthright. All right? And so you also see an implication of that theft of the birthright in The Wizard of Oz. And this is why the dog reveals the fake God.
Yeah.
Dog is God spelled backwards, you see? You know, and he pulls the curtain, and The Wizard of Oz is really the BS mystery, and then the nemesis is the monkeys. So the monkeys is Negro Yabera Areba. The great experiment took place in the Yucatan. You know, so all these symbols are really telling you the history. But keep this in mind, prophecy is really progressive charts. And so there's no mystery to this. And this is why Yahshua said, as I am, all men shall be. What I've done, all men can do. And some of you will even do greater works than I've done. You know, and when Yahshua said, like in the book of Mark, they say he's going away. And they say, well, how are we going to know God if you go away? He says, look first back into the hole from which you were dug. Meaning, if you don't know your history, don't talk about no God. That's what it really means. It means if you want to know God, go back into your history. And this is where the European is stealing your estate. That's why he must cut you off from the bloodline so that you can't confess your own. And if you can't confess your own, you have no estate. And this is where they set up the United States Corporation Company to escheat your estate by claiming you've abandoned your estate. This is what's going on. This is what's been going on. That's called hypothecation. That's what Trafalgar's talking about before the House. All right. And so when Drali had killed the other United States shell, this is why Franklin Delano Roosevelt took the birth certificates to reestablish another shell, because they had nothing Nothing else to go on. So now they're doing the birth certificates as bottom re-instruments. All of it's a fraud. All of it's a fraud. It's still what? The theft of your birthright. So now the Pope is telling you the history so you don't have to figure it out. You don't have to analyze it. You don't have to say, well, let me try to get spiritual. You don't do nothing. He's telling you directly, absolutely what's happening. Shows you the shell corporations, telling you ain't got to jump through no hoops and everything. Now, it's up to us. Honor your mothers and fathers or not. Whosoever will, let them come. Whosoever will, let them hear. But what they can't say Obama didn't tell them. They can't say the Pope didn't tell them. They can't say Rahm Emanuel didn't tell them. They can't say that the international community didn't tell them to declare their nationality, because they did. Didn't he sign the rights of indigenous people soon they came back? Didn't they say for all churches, all civic organizations to distribute this information at all costs? Did they do that? No. Well, here we go. So now the Manchurians is on them, so they're inspired. So the Pope may be an angel of light, maybe, but I suggest that he got heat.
Yeah, that's what
you know what I mean?
The question I had, in the letter you just read from that Anna Van Retz,
from
yeah, that one. It indicated in there that Lincoln was the last Republican president. However, previously you were just saying that he could
Which
not
you
have
must
been.
understand.
He
now,
could not have been because he was
you're
appointed
now
over in the government services.
Glad you paid
in
attention
France.
to details. Now you understand the John Wilkes Booth issue, and they accused him of executing the war with no authority. But he had the service contracts, and he used the service contracts, which means by default, with the operations of the occupational government under the Secret Treaty of Verona, and because the United States Corporation belongs to the Queen of England and we're under occupation, he had the authority to execute it by virtue of the service contracts.
Okay.
But that was the last lawful administration of government under the presidency. And you're absolutely correct. Now, but that's the analysis. And that's not an excuse, that is the analysis. Okay. That's why it must be explained, the United States Service Corporation, and he's telling you the same services that Lincoln did is what Obama is doing now under contract. It is the contract that they're enforcing.
Yeah.
And now, so the Pope is telling you, and telling the world, and telling them, oh, they have an obligation. Those obligations still exist.
Right.
You understand? They have been in breach, but those obligations still exist. The problem that we really have right now is the heirs are still asleep. They're still playing Negro games. And which still makes you non-descendable. And you're non-descendable, that's in general. Your non-descendable ability by default gives this European mandate. Because the trustees, remember in estate law, as long as the heirs demonstrate incompetence, or if they have the mentality of minors, because they're still called minorities because they have the mentality of minors, this gives European access. This is why the Manchurians stepped in. Because those who've been doing this job didn't do it. Then Drali said that when he closed the Quran, doesn't he say in the Quran, those of you who have 7 Qurans, read them. He says, this is the uniting of Asia. That's how it closes out. He says, your brothers from the east are going to have to come to help you. He told us, he's the prophet. He already told you what, see, if you paid attention to what he said and did progressive charts, everything he said is not, and you're living it out right now. But I can understand, where people, get spooked, because we've been played for so many generations. So, when they declare them prophet, everybody be saying they're prophets. But if you have the history and can measure, you can see everything that he stated came true. And you're living it absolutely even now. You know what I mean? And that's not to defend them, it's just, that's the record. But if you know the history, you can see the progression, you can see the dates, the timelines, the countermeasures, even the infiltration, the FBI papers. You can even see with the COINTELPRO operations of J. Edgar Hoover to counter Drali. You can see where even Calvin Coolidge said what? He says, if you can get over 500 follow you, I'll back you with my Army and Navy. And as soon as they got over 1 million with the help of Marcus Garvey, they infiltrated, set up COINTELPRO operations, got Marcus Garvey out of the way, etc. Drolly went to visit Marcus Garvey in Atlanta, in prison. And in 28, to protect the movement because of the infiltration, he adopted a religious affidavit to protect it so he could bring it under Heard's law, etc. And so 1928, the Moorish Holy Temple of Science adopted the Moorish Science Temple of America as its corporate name. So the Moorish Science Temple as an order existed only 1 year before they got rid of Drolly. And then that United States Corporation Company crashed anyway. You know, and this is where Franklin Delano Roosevelt then used the birth certificates of everybody to back the United States Corporation debt. They set up another shell. And the BS is going on and on and on. And this is where the politics are today. So if you understand the history, you can understand the politics. And this is the dissolution of colonial governments, etc.
Before you go to that, let me do a follow-up question.
I just want to tell y'all, listen.
No, get the mic out because I want you on the thing.
All right, I'm 56. I lived in a country that doesn't exist anymore called West Germany. Don't exist no more. It's called Germany now.
Right.
When the wall fell, the curtain got turned off first. So the next time I come, I want somebody to tell me what the Iron Curtain was. Because the Iron Curtain is why the wall fell. They turned off the Iron Curtain, and the Berlin Wall fell.
Yeah.
This has been in existence since shortly after my arrival in this plane. I never knew about it. You all go look at it and go read it. But what it says is that colonialization in any forms has to cease. Everything you know is colonial. You don't know anything that's not, unless you're Muslim. So all of us have been mentally manipulated and damaged, controlled in our thoughts to something that they said 6 months after I got here, they had to stop. I've been getting programmed with it ever since. Just found out it was supposed to stop. So you have to be the liberator of yourself. Find your own freedom.
But you type it in the search bar.
The United Nations Declaration of Decolonization. Adopted by the General Assembly resolution. You look that resolution up.
1314.
It'll pop up.
General Assembly, mindful of the determination proclaimed by the peoples of the world in the Charter of the United Nations, reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women, and of nations large and small, and to promote social progress and better standards in life, etc. Hold on, let me move this over so you all can see all of the writing. On better standards of life and larger freedom, conscious of the need for the creation of conditions of stability and well-being and peaceful and friendly relations based on respect for the principles of equal rights and self-determination of all peoples and of universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. We, recognizing the passionate yearning for freedom in all dependent peoples and the decisive role of such peoples in the attainment of their independence, aware of the increasing conflicts resulting from the denial of or impediments in the way of the freedom of such peoples which constitute a serious threat to world peace. Considering the important role of the United Nations in assisting the movement for independence in trust and non-self-governing territories, recognizing that the peoples of the world ardently desire the end of colonialism in all its manifestations, convinced that the continued existence of colonialism prevents the development of international economic cooperation, impedes the social, cultural, and economic development of dependent peoples, and militates against the United Nations ideal of universal peace, affirming that peoples may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation, based upon the principle of mutual benefit and international law, believing that the process of liberation is irresistible and irreversible, and that in order to avoid serious crisis, an end must be put to colonialism and all practices of segregation and discrimination associated therewith. Welcoming the emergence in recent years of a large number of dependent territories into freedom and independence, and recognizing the increasingly powerful trends toward freedom in such territories which have not yet attained independence. Convinced that all peoples have an inalienable right to complete freedom, the exercise of their sovereignty, and the integrity of their national territory. You see why they keep condemning sovereignty as if it's some kind of wrong thing? All right. Now, see what the nations of the world is telling you? All right. Solemnly proclaim the necessity of bringing to a speedy and unconditional end colonialism in all its forms and manifestations. And to this end declares that the subjection of peoples to alien subjugation, domination, and exploitation constitutes a denial of fundamental human rights, is contrary to the Charter of the United Nations, and is an important impediment to the promotion of world peace and cooperation. 2, all peoples have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. 3, inadequacy of political, economic, social, and educational preparedness should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence. 4, all armed action or representative measures of any kind directed against dependent peoples should cease in order to enable them to exercise peacefully and freely their right to complete independence and the integrity of their national territory shall be respected. 5, the immediate steps shall be taken in trust and non-self-governing territories or all other territories which have not yet attained independence to transfer all powers to the peoples of these territories without any conditions or reservations, in accordance with their freely expressed will and desire, without any distinction as to race, creed, or color, in order to establish them, in order to enable them to enjoy complete independence and freedom. 6, any attempt aimed at the partial or total disruption of the national unity and the territorial integrity of a country is incompatible with the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. 7, all states shall observe faithfully and strictly the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the present declaration on the basis of equality, non-interference in the internal affairs of all states, and respect for the sovereign rights of all people and their territorial integrity. So as you can see, the international community has been dealing with this, and this is, understand this is 1960, this particular thing. And then, of course, you will understand what took place with Obama.
Can we see what site that's on so we can write it?
Just do decolonization. See that?
Okay.
Yeah, the decolonization.
You win decolonization.
And General Assembly resolutions. Now keep this in mind, anyone in any organization, anywhere, it doesn't matter what so-called walk of life or so-called belief, you can see these principles are universal. And if they're talking about liberating anybody or anybody's rights and they're not telling the people these things, you already know that they're COINTELPRO operatives. and their religions or their beliefs have absolutely nothing to do with this. This has to do with right of the state and right of nationhood and self-determination and decolonization in all its formats. See, so you shouldn't be talking about racism and prejudice, you should be talking about decolonization. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because you've been under occupation. But I want to show you something else too. Hold on for a minute.
The Hawaiian that you showed up there?
Yes.
He's in the Albert Pike room in the lodge on 16th Street.
Huh?
He's in the Albert Pike room.
Yeah.
The Hawaiian on 16th
Yeah.
Street, DC.
And also in George Washington's lodge, they had oil painting of where they had all the little carvings of the men that march around every half hour or so on the hour. Yeah, they moved when we started taking people down there.
Yeah.
They started moving the oil paintings out. Yeah, so that people wouldn't know, you know, what the Alamo is really Allah's Moors. You know, the Lone Star State, that battle and everything. You know, so and then not know that California is named after Queen Khalifa, even though they have her with dreadlocks all over the place. The people don't know that she's the Moorish queen, that she ruled that area. And then others don't even know that that Mexico went up to Khalifa's territory, Nevada, part of Texas, New Mexico, etc. And then the Europeans trying to talk about the Mexicans are foreign. No, the Europeans are foreign. You know, and what we have to do is stop feeding into those false arguments that the European keeps presenting, trying to make the real American peoples alien to the land to claim their estate, which is what they've been doing also. And so whenever they do those things, it's incumbent upon us to deny them the opportunity to continue that fraud against our people. And this is why when you read chapter 47, Durale tells you the issue of the true Americans and the Muslims, etc. This is also why when remember I think it was when I was going to New York, the Mexicans, the Brinken brothers, they was doing TV shows in New York about the immigrants, etc. And the Mexicans sent the Puerto Rican brothers, they asked me to use Moors and Mexicans, and they used that arguing against the Europeans. And they made that poster to tell the Europeans the real history, that they're home. Yeah, we had fun with that one. You know, but it's mainly our people that need to stop falling for that argument, thinking, you know, letting the European call Mexicans or any other true Americans aliens. They're the alien.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead.
The question regarding the estate and those who have not declared their nationality to establish themselves as descendable.
Yep. See, in other words, like this. This is what I'm presenting to you. I don't say pro, I don't say con. I present you the history, it becomes obvious. What you do with it, take responsibility. Because what they're, because this is what's happening. They're in the process of trying to liquidate everybody's estate and then kill you off. This is why the Russians and the Chinese are stepping in, because this is what they're doing. This is what they've been doing, but they've been accelerating it. And so our job is to inform you. Your job is to analyze the information that don't even need no more analysis, because the Pope is telling you straight out. Now, what we do with this is on us. Meaning that, see, because this is what it really boils down to. Every man, every woman, and every child must confess their own. That means even the children are held to this. And this is where the common law comes in. That's what the common law is really all about. Because the common law is based, and this is where a lot of Europeans have set up these different processes trying to claim the estate, you know, from the UCCs, from the HMOs on up to now trying to claim the birth certificate. They're trying to get a hold of that global world trust. They ain't getting a hold of that.
They're not that
because ain't nobody get, because it's like if they allow it, domino effect. And so what they're in circle the wagon mode. This is why the Russians and the Chinese are stepping in. Because they know these people don't understand the real politics. But if they don't fix the thing, nations around the world will collapse and you're going to have world war. On a lie. Meanwhile, the heirs are sitting around looking for a J.O.B. that they ain't going to get.
Unless they make it.
And they're the heirs to the world's largest estate. Meanwhile, everybody's raping them, trying to sell them a package. And this is really what's going on right now. You know, meanwhile, the European trying to put them on the curb, trying to sell their estate. And they don't know it. And they're dealing with beliefs. And the world don't run on beliefs. It's for children, imbeciles, and rabbits. You know, and then you got people who know that this stuff is being exposed, are trying to condemn this information or represent or trying to act like we're out to lunch. You know what I mean? To stop this, they know that they can't stop this, but they're going to take about a third of these people down with them. And these people don't know this man going to try to kill them all. Because Susie ain't going to go to college. That house in the Poconos ain't going to work. And so they're on like what you call ulcer printing. They're printing while getting ulcers. You know, so they're going to be doing a lot of ugly. They're doing a lot of not going to do. They're doing a lot of ugly stuff.
They are doing it.
And people who are in a belief system, they're in denial. They don't know they're going to try to kill you. Not trying, they're doing it.
They will, yeah, they are doing it.
No, they are doing it. You know, and our people sit around talking racism, and it ain't racism, it's unum sanctum.
No.
They're being expended. They're being expended. You know, and then what's happening to a lot of wealthy, what they're doing, they're going around, they'll pick some young man or woman and kill them right on the street and steal their organs.
Yes, they do.
Well, Rockefeller, the one they just killed, he's had 8 heart transplants already. It's just that the White Dragon families just eliminated him. This was his last week. One Rockefeller and one Rothschild. The major heads. Huh?
What's up with the Queen, Taj?
With what?
The Queen. It's a lot of stuff changing. She didn't come.
No, they're trying to hide. I think she's done.
She's dead, right?
Yeah, I think for that's one. I think they're trying to hide that. You know, but I don't know whether they hit her or not. Either way, she's done. You know, but we need to understand the real. See, this is what it is. I think as a people, we keep looking for others to do what we must do.
Okay.
What are they going to do? It's not, no, what are you going to do?
There it is.
Oh, anyway, while we're here, support the house, because you already know Dr. Naila has been pretty much carrying this load by herself, and she's got food over there, so support that. So buy some food to help support the house, please. And also, her book. Those of you who don't have a book on poems, it's really a reward. Buy the book too.
What's the name of the book?
Excuse me, say again? Talk a little louder.
The English that you have on screen going to be made available.
If you got a flash drive, yes. Okay. Yeah. Excuse me. Huh? Yeah, so get on the phone.
And also time when
Get on the mic.
Can you
the Pope is the leader, it's not,
No, the Pope is the owner. Now, get this clear.
owner. Does
The Pope owns the corporate entity.
the Jesuit own the corporate entity?
The
The Pope owns the corporate entity.
The Pope is God of this earth, as described in Thessalonians 1 and 2, that Jesus told you about.
Got it.
The bishopric are the deputy knights to enforce it. The District of London enforces the color of law. The United States Corporation Company is the military complex to enforce Inquisition operations. This is where you see the 3 stars on the tags of Washington, D.C. First star of the Vatican. In other words, that's the trinity of Inquisition operatives. Are we clear? Go ahead. The CUSIC number is trying to get a hold of that global world trust. In other words, like, this is what I'm saying to you. This is what I want everyone to understand. I want everyone to understand. All these different processes that you hear people doing, all right, over the years.
I'm not recording it. And see, they're using this for saying that they can pay off the electric bills and all this stuff.
That's really, see, this is what we want. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get you all conscious enough. It's not just here, but with any organizations you belong to get people conscious, because they're supposed to discharge them. You're not supposed to be doing anything with them. They're robbing you. They're already discharged when they send them to you. When they send you electric bills, water bills, mortgages, they are really statements on the account. And they're telling you their bills. And they've been getting away with it because, one, people who know this haven't been telling you, and then individual people been trying to sell these processes to others while doing it themselves, and then they get attacked because no man's an island, because it's a nation, a state. It's not an individual. So we're trying to get you to be each other's keeper, which you're supposed to do. But I'm not telling you to do anything. I'm showing you the information. And I'm giving you a reference point. Come together in honor. You understand? See, when you do it as a body, they can't get over on you. When you do it as an individual, they'll attack you to intimidate you. Just like, for instance, we discharge some things sometimes, and they let us get away with it for a while, and then they start attacking us as individuals, and then slandering us to the public, and then we don't have the people behind us because they're saying, he should pay taxes like we did. You know, translation, we're slaves, so why ain't he a slave? That's what they're saying. And this is what goes on. All clear? And so we want you to understand what their obligations are. I'm going to go back into the reversioner in a minute. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something.
I got a question, Taj. Now,
go ahead.
In the reversion, right? Now, should we become, to do the things that we're able to do in it?
Say it again.
Under the reversional document, okay?
I'm going to read the law. I'm going to read the law of their obligation. So hold on for a minute. So you can see. All right, hold on.
Give me one of
Hey, I'm gonna tell y'all something while Taj is looking right there. Listen, Christopher Columbus's diary. He told the Queen Isabella that he had never seen so much non-human food. I met an older man with a lot more knowledge than me who calls them wachichus, people who eat people. And what has happened now is they have turned, all of us have been assimilated. They have us acting like them because we see each other as money, food, hustle. We have been converted from the original creatures found here, the happiest people that live,
into a beast.
into people feeding on each other.
Right.
Yeah.
We must look inside of ourselves, look at the man in the mirror, and transform ourselves back to our ancient mothers and fathers, and stop acting like our oppressor.
And this is described in the closeout of the Old Testament, where it says, turn your hearts back to your mothers and fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. And the Son of Righteousness arises with healing in his wings. And it gives you the Kabbalistic origin, and it's spelled S-U-N to give you the Kabbalistic secret of the book, instead of S-O-N. And so people say, you know, the sun is Jesus, which it is, but it's actually the sun in the sky. So it tells you the true Kabbalistic principle and the principle for you to turn back. And then it has 4 chapters representing the 4 gates, and then it closes out the Old Testament. You know. So that means you must go back to the culture and render unto Rome or Caesar what is Caesar. I mean, give them back the BS culture that you've adopted to your own injury. But I want to show you the obligation. Excuse me just a minute. Now, we went over this again, but I think you can understand this better. You remember the Dungy case, you understand that status equals a state. I mean, you don't have to accept it, you can see it in operation, all right? And then I gave support information to remove all doubt. So you understand what's been done to our people, and what they're doing to our people today is not racism and prejudice, it's birthright theft. The race and prejudice argument is designed to divert you and to make you incompetent when you argue it, then it justifies their position. No matter how good it sounds, it's a false position. Do you understand? And this is why it's so much effort is put behind it to make it seem real and make our people cling to it, thinking that they're helping themselves when they're actually demonstrating incompetence. All right? Now, this is why when you hear the Pope's letter, also you read his other letter, the motu proprio, then you look at Traficant's statement, then you read the Act of Congress, 1871, then you read the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, Rahm Emanuel's statement, Obama showing you the true American flag, everything, and understand what's being said to you, and understand that it is to clear your concepts, because the protocols are obvious. But if you don't exercise the protocols, you have a right not to. However, there's a consequence. Do you understand? The consequence is birthright theft. And it's the same thing in its nature when you look at Executive Order 11490 that they did with some other people that were claiming to be somebody that they're not. They were taking up space. They sent them to a barbecue party. Do you understand? And when you study Executive Order 11490, they use that as a pattern to apply it to these people to this day. You know, and that's what's in exercise. The biological warfare, the AIDS, the Ebola, all of them are made in laboratories to get rid of what they're calling useless eaters. And it's really the heirs of the estate. But understand, under the black codes, you're outside the human family. Go ahead. Give her the mic.
I'm sorry.
The two of us sitting here, we are under biological warfare.
We all are.
We are targeted. We are tortured in our own home.
Yep.
If they decide to turn it up right now, we can be shocked. You know, constantly.
Even with the smart meters, etc. Now, would you got organites in your house?
Huh?
Yeah, I have a piece of organite, I have several
No.
crystals and.
You got organized, well, get
I
some
don't.
organized here.
Okay.
We'll have some more here, we'll have some more organized, here soon.
Now, who do we, because they have, this has been since 2009 for me.
Yeah.
And about 2 months ago, I started losing weight. One day, I went to bed, I woke up the next day,
Were they using scalar on you?
everything.
No, the scalar weapons are right
They
before you.
use infrared sound for me, that's the frequency
Yeah, the
sound
scalar
frequency.
weapons.
But we don't hear it, our human ear doesn't hear it.
Yeah, I know.
Our body.
That's scalar. That's a scalar.
Right,
Yeah, it's a scalar.
I said
And, so who do we go?
You're not going to go to them. The first thing you're doing right is coming amongst your own. You know.
Right, well, I discharged my Discover card. I took care of that about a year or so ago, and then they tried to,
Oh, because
you know,
now
the
this is what they're
mortgage
trying
thing,
to, this is basically what
and
we're
I-
saying to
I
you.
fought them.
They're trying to kill the
Yes.
heirs to the estate.
Yes,
Now, what you want to do, you want to make it public.
Right, I haven't,
Now-
never did it, I'm thinking
No.
about doing it.
All right. Now, you're free national?
yes.
She's
All
never.
right, all right, good. Now, what you want to do is you make a complaint to the Archbishop of this area.
Okay.
You want to not just tell us, you want to put it in writing. You want to put it in writing because they're under obligation. And as you can see, as the Pope's saying, one of the problems that they're having is that they have rebellion in the ranks. So this is where the Civil War, when you look at the letter, you can tell inferences that Civil War is going on.
Right.
See, now the
My
major
whole
thing
body
that
at night,
we want to
especially
do,
when I lay down, my whole body at night just resonates, just vibrates.
Yeah.
You know.
the major thing we want to do is not allow them to get away with it, meaning that don't keep it to yourself.
Oh,
And you already know that most of our people don't know about scalar weapons and the advanced technology.
and they're
All right.
so mind controlled that they're part of the operation.
Huh?
They're so mind controlled that they're part of
Well, we already know, but
Yes.
this is what it's going to be. This is what must be understood. We already know that many of them are going to be eliminated. Now, our job is we can't stop the bloodshed. Our job is to limit the bloodshed. But the other deal is not to get so emotionally scaled with the people that you attach, because they have the obligation, just like you, to honor their mothers and their fathers. We're in a position right now that we're in right now is because the generations before us have not honored, and they've sacrificed. And so many people will be sacrificed. Just accept it. There will be two in the field. One will be taken, the other will be left. In other words, we're at the apex right now. In other words, it's not coming, it's here. You know, so the deal of it is amp up your energy. Be around those who know.
Bitter-melon, that's why.
And remember, yes, the cosmic
I was
mother,
going crazy, I was like almost suicidal if I hadn't met her like a year ago.
but the cosmic mother comes to the aid of those who help others.
Right.
You want to save yourself? Teach someone who does not know. Teach them clearly, cleanly, and do not put fiat in front of your mission. Servant is worthy of his hire. With fiat in front of it, it becomes corrupted, and she will allow you to be sacrificed. Because remember, the estate is yours anyway. See, our problem collectively is we're worried about fiat.
Yes.
Because like Paul said, we've been trained under the Roman Curia. So we don't know anything but colonial operations.
Right.
You have to fight your lower self to see where you are. Are we clear?
Right.
The greatest aid to you is your aid to another. Then the cosmic mother counters them. You really don't have to do anything. Don't, because you're not going to appeal to anyone. You will appeal to the higher self that's in you. That's where all your prayers are going anyway. You know what I mean? And all the concepts, misconceptions that we've had about what we thought religion was must be shed. You must give it back to Rome. Examine everything and see where the connotative linguistics have been introduced and consciously shed it. And don't worry about things, just do that. And one of the biggest healers is sincerity itself. Think of the word in sincerity, what it means in all aspects, from every facet of the diamond. And that's where the healing comes from. All of the tools that we use, crystals, organites, everything, that's really to remind us of the right side of the brain. But once you really make the connection, you really don't even need any of them. Those are training wheels.
Right, well, my targeting stopped when I started studying under Brother Will I Am out of Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling them different things that was happening and the colors, you know, the psychic driving.
Yeah, they're psychic attacks.
Some more.
Yeah.
No psychic attacks.
Yeah, most
Yeah.
Moors are aware. They make me feel comfortable because they're aware.
Yeah.
So when she turned me on to him, and I started studying under him too, you know, it makes you feel comfortable that you that you're not going crazy.
Do you have your charts with? Do you have your charts?
Charts?
You don't have your charts?
No, she's more.
Yeah, I have.
No. Listen. Get your charts, both of you.
Which charts?
Cafe Astrology, online.
Natal charts.
But tell them, I want to say something.
Astrology?
Well, talk to them. Yeah.
Taurus? I'm a Taurus.
No, but you have a
Now,
natal chart.
I want you to pay attention to this. See, the 12 USC 95 bag.
But you need somebody that can interpret it.
Oh, okay.
All right. Now.
I can replace it. Get it free. They'll give you an interpretation of all your houses.
Oh.
I'm gonna throw something at y'all that's before the United
Nations. Congressman ever since May 10th of 1861. So the trustees held legal title, U.S. citizen, tenant, franchisee, was registered as a beneficiary to the trust via his or her birth certificate in 1933, because Raleigh crashed that in the United States, and that's when Franklin Delano Roosevelt used the birth certificates, because Raleigh crashed that one. And there you go. That's what Traficant was talking about. That's why they killed him a couple of years ago. You know, pretending that his tractor turned over when he was putting it in the barn. Yeah, like it's a hill going in the barn door, right? Yeah, right. Anyway, so via his or her birth certificate in 1933 in the federal United States hypothecated all the present and future properties, assets, and labor of their subjects. 14th Amendment, U.S. citizen to the Federal Reserve. And this is why they have the so-called black leaders going around on the civil rights telling our people that they're U.S. citizens and they think they're getting a benefit and they're really agreeing to be stock. You understand? That's the idiom solus, transmitting utility, man of straw, etc. And so, understanding the real politics, declare your estate. And without being an heir or your nationality, you can't use the Constitution or treaty. Because that's an heir instrument. And this is what people need to understand. Constitutions and treaties are to nation states what family wills are to the limited unit family. And without the nationality, you have no right of claim of the estate. This is why the European created the nom de guerre, and this is why Frederick Johann Blumenbach and Carlos Linneo set up the phenotype systems for the United States Census Bureau, and then they paid off the so-called Negro preachers to get our people to be people of color, thinking it made them Afrocentric, and it actually made them non-descendable. And 14th Amendment U.S. citizens, they converted the debt to you again. And that's how it works. So if you understand how it works, you understand, if you understand that basis, you wouldn't even need us to give you an example, you would know what to say. But if you cross your conversation into the feudal realm, you lose your argument. So the issue is your concepts of knowing the difference between the U.S. democracy order that was set up in 1861, distinguished from the United States Republic that was set up by the Moors and the deists, called Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, etc., all who had Korans, who were in operation under the Moroccan Empire, and with the ordinance of 1787 determining to protect the heirship or the Aboriginal people's interests. That's why you have the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, 1786, 1787, Ordinance of 1787, the ratification of the Constitution for the United States 1788, solidified 1789. Now, as a synopsis, so you'll understand the politics even behind this. By Abraham Lincoln being a member of the Bar Association, he could not run for office for the organic United States. So they ran him for office on the United States Service Corporation in France that Benjamin Franklin set up in 1754. So that gave him power over the contracts to serve a foreign privately owned and deemed for-profit corporation in the year 1871. See the Act of Congress, 1871. That sentence prison-derived and foreign feudal law entity born of treason was styled as the United States Corporation Company, which is now commonly referred to as the U.S. democracy. The foreign and privately owned entity deceptively created by acts of sedition and all its many states of entities or its other licensed and associated corporate franchisees were and are ultimately and factually owned by the Vatican. Being members of the Roman Curia, this politically and socially subdued truth and fact is actually the very foundation and source of the functioning jurisdictional powers that gave and still gives the Pope of Rome or the Vatican bishopric the colorably valid and affirmable authority over the entity U.S. democracy, United States Corporation, and also jurisdiction over those subordinate associated entities as expressed and executed via this impacting letter. Now you all have this, so I'm not going to go through all this. We're going to just go to the Pope's letter so you can understand the concept. So there's Pope Francis speaking to his important employee of the United States Corporation Service Corporation. Now, so Pope Francis sends Obama a powerful letter via attorney, and of course you all know the other letter, early one. But this is important because the Pope tells you the history, and he also shows you the shells. So write down the shells so that you can understand what Trafficon is talking about, what Louis McFadden was talking about, what we're talking about, and what Noble Drawley was countering. So now you can see modus operandi.
So the shells are who? The American Bar
Association? Most people don't know that the United States has shell corporations that were built since the first one crashed in 1861. See, Lincoln crashed the first shell. They reestablished it. And then Drawley crashed that one. Then they reestablished it. Drawley crashed the next one. See, so the one that Lincoln crashed, 1860. One Drawley crashed, 1913. Then Drawley crashed the other one, but they assassinated him, but it still crashed, 1933. That's the one that Franklin Delano Roosevelt did. And then this last one crashed again, and then the Manchurians told them, you ain't doing no more shells. That's what's going on right now between China, Russia, and the United States Corporation Company operatives who've been continuously pretending to be government and waging war with counterfeit paper, pretending to be government, and now the world is turning on them. That's the politics. Meanwhile, our people who thought there was Negro, black, and color is at the center of this thing and don't know it, because the people who should have told them this stuff decades ago, they're marching around praying and keeping hope alive and stuff, and they're the heirs to the world's largest estate, and these people trying to kill them off. And they need to know that. Go ahead, good brother.
Quick question.
Get a mic.
That's okay.
No, but we need you on because we have people listening.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
Just point of clarity, can you give an example, explain clearly, for example, how did Lincoln crash the shell?
All right, this is what occurred. So you got to know about the shell. So write this down. 1754, Benjamin Franklin, who was later to be one of the ministers plenipotentiary with the construction of the Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the Moroccan Empire and the United States. And you got to understand the United States is an agreement of Europeans operating at Northwest Dimensional North America. And this is why it's important to understand the fall of the Red House, which is the Alhambra of 1492. And so that is the conversion point with the Romanus Pontifex and into Terra Divina, 1492, 1493. And so the Moorish Empire was falling, and so the treaty would be planned or upcoming. So negotiations have been going on for like 30 to 40 years. And step by step, even though skirmishes was taking place, Benjamin Franklin set up the United States Service Corporation in France, 1754, to prepare for the service contracts that was to be dealing with government operations at Morocco under the Queen of England. Do you understand? Lincoln, being a member of the Bar Association by fatwa or Moorish law, could not hold the office of the organic president. So to control the contracts, they ran him for president on the platform of the United States Service Corporation in France. When he recognized they were using him to undermine the Republic, he deliberately bankrupted that platform, which put a target on his back. And of course, you already know these things were going on anyway, where they were trying to claim the land of the Moors. And before he was even in that office, 5 years before, that's the Dungy case that I read to you earlier. It's not the only case, but that's one of the primal cases, so you can see his counter moves to the cabal operations. This is why you see them doing a satire of dressing him in Moorish garb and calling him Africanus I. Are we clear? Because it's also known he had Moorish blood too, so they were kind of pissed anyway, because they were, you know, the Spanish Inquisition is the Inquisition against the Moors and Yahudi. Yahudi is the proper name, what you call Jew. But keep this in mind. You've got to keep in your mind the United States Service Corporation in France, distinguished from the United States Republic at Morocco, North America, that manifests as the union between the deists who were leaving the Christian order. That's Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, etc., Madison and all of them. They were deists. Are we clear? That's why all of them had Korans. It's the treaty. And so this is again why when you see Obama, when he went to Hikupta and he spoke before the delegates, he told you that the American Constitution comes from Muslim law. He's telling you the real history. And this is why Michelle went to the Alhambra. That's why she's wearing a red dress. And they're showing you the real American flag. Then he sold the picture of Drew Ali to show you your history. So, because he knows our people, they're confused because people have been playing with them for so many generations on both sides. So he's the operative of the corporate entity, so he's showing you. And so now, for them to discharge, because they're trustees. And they send you a statement on account, and you be thinking it's a bill. Then you go pay it. Instead of charging them. This is what they've been getting away with. Now you understand the reversion of statement?
Yes.
All right. So they have access to limited or unlimited. Anyway, let's go. Now, the Federal Reserve System was based on the canon law. So you understand?
Still have a second question.
The Jesuit order. All right? Federal Reserve System is based on the canon law and the principles of sovereignty protected in the Constitution and Bill of Rights. In fact, the international bankers use a canon law trust as their model, adding stock and naming it a joint stock trust. The United States Congress had passed a law making it illegal for any legal person to duplicate a joint stock trust in 1873. Gotta keep in mind the Act of Congress 1871. See, they completed their political platform. So you gotta know what this is actually referencing. So the Federal Reserve Act was legislated post facto to 1870. Although post facto laws are strictly forbidden by Constitution, right? Hold on, let me see here. Now, this is the other point I want you to see. Prior to 1913, keep in mind when Drew Ali set up the Old Canine Temple for the restoration of the state, and he crashed that United States. So prior to 1913, so before 1913, on up to 1913, most Americans own free or clear allodial title to property. You ask people what an allodial title is, most of them don't even know it, never even heard of it. And they think that the mortgage and the deed is the ownership of the land. No, allodial title is. This is what Drawley was restoring. You see, so if you don't know this, you sit around talking about beliefs or how you feel and praying and making salat, your concepts are wrong. You know, so people are trying to keep this information from our people so they can keep them thinking that you're just supposed to go there and pray. And you declare incompetent, and this European still gets mandated, and that's how this thing has been going on. And this is why we did the allodial trust and everything, just like Dee did, to show you an example. So when you take them mortgages, you convert them to your estate under clear allodial title, because you're the heir. And if you don't do it, they claim that you've abandoned your estate. This is where, if they carry it through, which they will often do, you have a future argument, and it can be reversed. This is basically what Rick did. That's what Rick did. Do you understand? So you understand this principle, and you see, but anyway, just read this paragraph and then we'll just talk. Prior to 1913, most Americans owned clear allodial title to property, free and clear of any liens or mortgages. You see that? Until the Federal Reserve Act, 1913, hypothecated all property within the federal United States to the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve, in which the trustees, stockholders, that's the Congress and all of them, who set up a kingship oligarchy for themselves and have been pretending to give contracts to the organic United States. When Lincoln recognized that they were using him to undermine the Republic, Lincoln bankrupted that United States Service Corporation in France that put a target on his back. Then he did the Dungy case, this is prior to that. He had done the Dungy case, which I read when we first came in here. That put a target on his back. That's the reason Lincoln was assassinated. Are we clear? And then the plot of 1861, the Congress adjourned sine die, was really a coup d'etat. And the plot was to convert the United States Service Corporation debt that Lincoln bankrupted onto the backs of the descendants of the Moors, who was protected by treaty and constitution. That's why the brand system is necessary, to take you out of airship. Do you understand? That's why the black Negro thing is promoted. Because only Moors can be the holders in due course, through airship alone. This is why Europeans, with the sovereignty groups who perfect the different processes that they build, because they knew this real history, and then when they perfect the processes, the magistrates tell them you can't use that constitution and treaty as a defense. You're not a party to it. As soon as they agreed to be white people under the Knights of Columbus Ku Klux Klan oath, 1854 to 1863, under the split of the Whittemore Party, setting up the Republican Party, they gave up their birthright too. You need to understand the politics. So they know the history, and they still try to steal the estate. You understand? And so now we're in a quandary. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And the heirs still half asleep. Meanwhile, nations are dumping them UST bonds because they see these heirs are waking up because they're worthless paper. And most of the nation states have over 55% of their treasury reserve in UST bonds. And the Manchurian said to them, no more shells. So now let's go to the post letter, because I'm showing you these component parts so you can understand the William Dungy case and why you proclaim your nationality. It's an airship issue. Think airship. You don't have to do what we do. You need to understand the concept. Do you understand? And as you work your brains, many of you will do better than this. But I'm just giving you some reference points so that you can understand where your battle really is. So you don't start arguing no colors and stuff like that. It's an estate issue. Always was. That's the adjustments I made with the reversion. I want to make sure I put that on your flash drive. All right, so let's go. And Hold on. Now, Pope's letter to Obama. Now, we're going to read this. Now, this is redundant, but again, necessary, concept-wise. Because if you really pay attention, many of the questions that you ask are really already answered. You just got to pay attention to details. This is a synopsis of the history. The original and de jure Constitution and government for the United States of America, small u, at North America, having a Republican form of government, Article 4, Section 4, all right? Set forth and established at Article 4, Section 4, stands as the supreme law of the land. The organic Constitution was altered by acts of misprision and was secretly overthrown and converted into